The Church Fellowship Hall in Shreveport, Louisiana, often a place of warmth and community, had taken on a new energy that evening. The usual clatter of chairs and soft conversations still filled the room, but tonight, the air carried a heavier sense of anticipation. It wasn't a Sunday potluck or Bible study that had gathered the people, but an event with an unexpected guest, Donald Trump. Trump, standing at the front of the modest hall, was a familiar figure. His towering presence and signature gestures filled the space, yet he seemed different tonight. The boisterous confidence he carried on stage at rallies had given way to a quieter, more subdued demeanor. Perhaps he sensed that this was not a night for politics alone, but for something deeper. The audience, a mix of families, retirees, and curious locals, watched intently. They had come expecting his usual talking points, yet something about the evening hinted at the possibility of more. And amidst the crowd sat an 8-year-old girl who would change everything. Lily was dressed in her finest Sunday dress, her golden hair neatly combed, and in her small hands, she clutched an old leather-bound Bible. The book, worn with age, bore the fading gold imprint of her late grandmother's touch, a keepsake Lily treasured beyond words. Her mother, seated beside her, had whispered softly as they arrived, "You can ask him if you're brave enough. Just make sure it's something you truly want to know." Lily had nodded, her heart beating faster than ever. She had spent weeks preparing, rehearsing her question in secret. It wasn't something she had casually thought of. It was a question that had grown in her heart, weighing heavily on her young shoulders. As the evening unfolded, Trump spoke about policies, achievements, and the future of the country. The audience clapped politely, their reactions measured. Yet, for Lily, none of it mattered. Her focus was solely on the moment she had been waiting for. When the floor opened for questions, the mood shifted. People lined up, eager to address the man before them. Questions about local concerns, national challenges, and even light-hearted compliments flowed. Lily hesitated, her hands gripping her grandmother's Bible as if it were a lifeline. Her mother gave her a gentle nudge. "Now's your chance, sweetheart," she whispered. With trembling legs, Lily stood. Her small frame seemed even smaller as she made her way to the microphone. Heads turned. Conversations quieted. A murmur spread as people noticed the young girl stepping forward, her oversized Bible clutched tightly to her chest. When her turn came, Trump looked at her with a soft expression. His usual sharp demeanor melted into something kinder, almost paternal. "And what's your question, young lady?" he asked, his voice unusually gentle. Lily swallowed hard. Her grip on the Bible tightened until her knuckles turned white. Then, with a voice that trembled yet held an unyielding sincerity, she asked, "Mr. Trump, what does God mean to you?" The question hung in the air, its weight silencing the room. The usual hum of whispers and shuffling of chairs ceased entirely. For a man known for his quick responses and unshakable confidence, Trump stood there, speechless. The audience, too, seemed frozen, their gazes darting between the little girl and the man at the podium. It wasn't the kind of question anyone had anticipated, but it was one that no one could ignore. For a moment, Trump stared at Lily, his eyes flickering to the Bible in her hands. Something shifted in his expression, a crack in the armor of his public persona. His lips parted, but no words came. He leaned slightly against the podium, as if needing the support, and exhaled deeply. "That's a big question," he began, his voice quieter than anyone had ever heard it. "And it's not one I've always had the answer to." His admission drew a collective gasp. This was not the typical polished rhetoric of a seasoned politician. It was raw, personal, and deeply human. Trump paused, his gaze never leaving Lily. He seemed to be searching for the right words, not to impress the crowd, but to answer her sincerely. The room, once buzzing with energy, now felt heavy with anticipation. Lily stood motionless, her wide eyes locked on him. She wasn't seeking a rehearsed answer or a grand statement. She wanted something real, something she could hold on to. As Trump began to speak again, the sincerity in his voice hinted that what he was about to share would touch not just Lily, but everyone in the room. Trump stood at the podium, visibly moved by Lily's question. The crowd watched in rapt silence, sensing the gravity of the moment. For a man accustomed to debates, interviews, and speeches in front of thousands, this felt different. This wasn't about politics, slogans, or applause. It was about truth. "I'll be honest with you," Trump began, his voice carrying a rare vulnerability. "When I was your age, Lily, I didn't think much about God. My family went to church, and we prayed before meals, but I didn't fully understand what it meant." He paused, his eyes scanning the room as if searching for the right words. The stillness in the air was almost palpable. "As I got older, I became focused on building things, skyscrapers, hotels, businesses. I thought that success came from hard work and determination, and I believed that I was in control of everything in my life." He glanced at Lily again. Her small frame dwarfed by the Bible, she clutched to her chest. "But life has a way of humbling you," he continued. "It shows you that no matter how powerful or successful you think you are, there are things beyond your control, things only God can handle." The crowd shifted slightly, their collective curiosity now mingled with empathy. Trump wasn't delivering a sermon or a campaign promise. He was sharing a piece of himself, and it was clear that he was speaking not as a politician, but as a man who had lived through the highs and lows of life. "There have been moments," he said, his voice softening, "when I've faced challenges so overwhelming that I didn't know where to turn. Losing my brother Fred was one of those moments. He was someone I looked up to, someone who taught me about kindness and humility. When he passed, it shook me to my core. For the first time, I realized that there were questions I couldn't answer and burdens I couldn't carry alone." Trump's tone shifted as he delved deeper. "I remember one night after Fred's passing, sitting alone in my office. I looked out over the city, at all the buildings and lights, and I felt empty. It was then that I found myself praying, not because I was trying to impress anyone or because I thought it would fix everything, but because I didn't know what else to do." The confession caught the audience off guard. Many had come expecting a polished politician, not a man bearing his soul. Lily's eyes remained fixed on him, her young face a picture of earnestness and understanding beyond her years. "Since then," Trump continued, "I've come to realize that faith isn't about having all the answers. It's about trust, trusting that there's a higher power guiding us, even when we don't understand the path." He hesitated, as if weighing whether to say more. "It's about knowing that we're part of something bigger than ourselves." His words lingered in the air, and for a moment, the silence was deafening. Then, as if compelled by some unseen force, Trump reached for a glass of water and took a slow sip, his hands uncharacteristically unsteady. He looked back at Lily, his eyes softening further. "You're wise beyond your years to ask such a question, and I'll admit, I don't always get it right. I still have days when I struggle to live up to what God asks of me. But what I do know is this: God's love is constant. It's not about how much money you have, how many buildings you've built, or how many votes you've won. It's about your heart, your actions, and your willingness to listen to Him." The crowd, previously quiet, began to stir with murmurs of approval. It wasn't the response many had expected from a man known for his brash persona, but it resonated deeply. Lily, emboldened by his honesty, stepped closer to the microphone. "So, do you pray now?" she asked, her voice small but steady. Trump nodded, a faint smile touching his lips. "I do, Lily. Not as often as I should, but I do. I pray for guidance, for strength, and for the wisdom to do what's right, not just for me, but for the people I serve." The admission seemed to carry the weight of his responsibilities, and the room felt it. For a moment, Trump wasn't just a former president or a businessman. He was a man grappling with the same questions of faith and purpose that many in the room had faced. "I'll tell you something else," he added, his tone lighter now. "When I see someone like you, someone so young and full of faith, it gives me hope. It reminds me that no matter how divided or difficult things seem, there's always a reason to believe." The crowd erupted into soft applause, breaking the tension that had filled the hall. Lily smiled, her cheeks flushed with a mix of pride and relief. She had asked her question, and in doing so, she had sparked a moment of genuine connection that transcended politics, age, and status. Trump looked out at the audience, his gaze lingering on each face as if seeing them anew. The conversation had shifted, and so had the tone of the evening. It was no longer about policies or promises. It was about faith, humility, and the shared journey of seeking meaning in a complex world. As the applause died down, Trump returned his attention to Lily. "Thank you," he said simply. "You've reminded me of something very important tonight." With that, he stepped back from the podium, his expression reflective. The room, once buzzing with energy, now felt united in a shared sense of reverence and understanding. And as the evening continued, it was clear that Lily's question had done more than just elicit an answer. It had sparked a conversation that would linger in the hearts of everyone present. The atmosphere in the hall had shifted noticeably. The candid exchange between Trump and Lily had sparked a sense of unity, a collective acknowledgement of the deeper human truths that transcended politics. As Trump stepped back to the podium, the tone of the evening changed once more, this time toward reflection on faith's role in leadership. Trump began, his voice steady but contemplative. "You know, I've been in many rooms like this, big crowds, people with strong opinions, and debates about the future of our country. And while I've spoken about policies, the economy, and foreign relations, one thing I've learned over the years is that leadership isn't just about making decisions or winning arguments. Leadership is about serving something greater than yourself." He paused, letting his words sink in. The audience leaned forward, sensing the weight of his introspection. "Now, I'll admit," Trump continued, his tone self-effacing, "I haven't always gotten it right. I've made mistakes, said things I wish I could take back, and made decisions that weren't always perfect. But through it all, I've come to see that true leadership requires humility. It requires the courage to say, I don't have all the answers, but I'm willing to learn, to listen, and to grow." The crowd nodded in silent agreement. This wasn't the fiery rhetoric they were used to from Trump. This was a quieter, more reflective side, one that resonated deeply with the room's solemn energy. "As a leader," Trump went on, "I've realized that people aren't just looking for someone to solve problems. They're looking for someone who understands their struggles, who sees their pain and doesn't turn away. And that's where faith comes in. Faith teaches us to see beyond ourselves, to recognize that every person has value, and that our actions, no matter how small, can make a difference in someone else's life." He gestured toward Lily, who was still seated near the front, her Bible resting on her lap. "Take Lily, for example," he said, a genuine smile breaking across his face. "Her question tonight wasn't just about me. It was about all of us. It was a reminder that we're all searching for meaning, for purpose, for a connection to something bigger than ourselves. And as a leader, it's my responsibility to honor that search, to create spaces where people feel seen, heard, and valued." The applause that followed was subdued but heartfelt. Trump took a moment to collect his thoughts before continuing. "In my time as president," he said, his voice tinged with both pride and humility, "I faced countless challenges. Some were expected, like navigating trade deals or addressing national security. But others were unexpected. Moments that tested my faith, my resolve, and my belief in what's possible. And in those moments, I turned to prayer. Not because I thought it would magically fix everything, but because it reminded me that I wasn't alone. That even in the darkest times, there was a light guiding me forward." His words struck a chord with the audience, many of whom had faced their own moments of uncertainty and doubt. Trump's vulnerability, his willingness to admit his dependence on something greater than himself, made him more relatable, more human. "One of the lessons I've learned," Trump continued, "is that leadership isn't just about what you achieve, it's about what you inspire in others. It's about giving people hope, showing them that even when the odds seem stacked against them, they have the strength to persevere. And that's where faith plays such a powerful role. Faith reminds us that no matter how difficult the journey, there's always a reason to keep going." He took a deep breath, his gaze sweeping across the room. "I know there are people here tonight who are struggling. Maybe you're dealing with loss, or financial hardship, or a sense of uncertainty about the future. I want you to know that I see you. I hear you. And more importantly, God sees you. He knows your pain, your fears, and your dreams. And He's with you, even when it feels like you're walking through the valley alone." The room was silent, the weight of his words settling over the audience like a comforting blanket. Trump's voice softened as he added, "It's easy to get caught up in the noise of the world, the arguments, the headlines, the distractions. But when we take a moment to be still, to listen to that small, quiet voice inside us, we find the strength to move forward. We find the courage to face whatever comes our way. He paused again, his expression thoughtful. As a leader, I've tried to embody that courage even when it wasn't easy. I've stood firm in my beliefs, fought for what I thought was right, and worked tirelessly to make a difference. But I couldn't have done any of it without faith. Faith in God, faith in the people around me, and faith in the resilience of this great nation. The applause that followed was louder this time, a testament to the resonance of his message. Trump smiled, his demeanor one of quiet gratitude. In the end, he said, his voice steady and sure, leadership isn't about power or prestige. It's about service. It's about lifting others up, even when it costs you something. And it's about trusting that the seeds you plant today will grow into something beautiful tomorrow. With those words, he stepped back from the podium, his expression one of peace. The audience rose to their feet, their applause echoing through the hall. It was clear that Trump's message had touched something deep within them, a reminder of the enduring power of faith, hope, and leadership rooted in service. The atmosphere in the hall was now electric. Trump's speech had moved from introspection to inspiration, leaving the audience eager for a glimpse of the road ahead. Returning to the podium, Trump looked across the crowd, his gaze steady and confident. I've spoken tonight about leadership, about faith, and about the lessons I've learned along the way, he began. But now, I want to talk about the future, our future. Because no matter where we've been or what challenges we've faced, I firmly believe that the best days of America are still ahead of us. The crowd erupted into applause, a wave of energy rippling through the room. Trump raised his hand slightly, signaling for quiet. To move forward, he continued, we must first address the divisions that have held us back. Our nation is strong, but it's no secret that we've been fractured by politics, by fear, and by misunderstanding. If we are to reclaim our greatness, we must start by rebuilding the bonds that unite us as one people under one flag. He paused, allowing the weight of his words to settle. Unity isn't just a slogan, he said firmly. It's a call to action. It's about recognizing that, despite our differences, we all share a common love for this country and a desire to see it thrive. And that starts with respect. Respect for one another, for our values, and for the principles that make America the beacon of hope for the world. The audience nodded, their expressions a mix of hope and determination. Trump leaned forward slightly, his voice taking on a more personal tone. We won't always agree, he admitted. That's part of living in a free society. But disagreement doesn't have to mean division. It's possible to stand firm in your beliefs while still listening to and learning from those who see the world differently. That's how we grow. That's how we move forward. Not by tearing each other down, but by building each other up. The crowd responded with a burst of applause, the energy in the room growing stronger with each word. As we look to the future, Trump said, his tone shifting to one of resolve, we must also address the challenges that lie ahead. We face threats from abroad, economic uncertainty, and a rapidly changing world. But I've always believed that the American people are up to the task. Time and time again, we've proven that when we come together, there's nothing we can't accomplish. He gestured to the audience, his voice rising with conviction. Think about it. This country was built by ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Farmers, factory workers, teachers, and small business owners. People who weren't afraid to roll up their sleeves and get to work. That's the spirit we need to recapture. A spirit of determination, of resilience, of unshakable belief in the power of the American dream. The applause was deafening now, a testament to the hope and pride his words had ignited. Trump smiled, his expression one of gratitude and resolve. But to achieve that vision, he continued, we must also invest in the next generation. Our children are the future of this nation, and it's our responsibility to ensure they have the tools, the education, and the opportunities they need to succeed. That means strengthening our schools, supporting our teachers, and fostering an environment where every child, no matter where they come from, can reach their full potential. He paused, his tone softening. It also means teaching them the values that have made this country great. Hard work, integrity, and love for their fellow Americans. Because the true measure of our success isn't just what we achieve, it's what we leave behind for those who come after us. The audience rose to their feet, their applause a thunderous expression of agreement. Trump took a step back, allowing the moment to breathe before continuing. And finally, he said, his voice steady and strong, we must never lose sight of the power of hope. Hope is what carried our founders through the darkest days of the revolution. Hope is what sustained us through wars, depressions, and moments of profound uncertainty. And hope is what will guide us as we navigate the challenges of today and tomorrow. He looked out over the crowd, his expression one of deep conviction. I know the road ahead won't be easy, he admitted, but I also know that we are a nation of fighters, of dreamers, of people who refuse to give up no matter how hard the journey becomes. Together, with faith as our foundation and unity as our strength, we can build a future that is brighter, stronger, and more hopeful than ever before. The crowd erupted into a standing ovation, their applause echoing through the hall like a roar of thunder. Trump stepped back from the podium, his face a mix of pride and humility. Thank you, he said simply, his voice almost drowned out by the cheers. Thank you for believing in this vision, for standing with me, and for never losing faith in the promise of America. As he exited the stage, the audience remained on their feet, their applause a testament to the enduring power of his message. In that moment, it was clear that Trump had not only inspired hope, but also reignited a sense of purpose and possibility for all who had gathered to hear him speak.